DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined now by Mitch Harper, BYU Cougar insider for The Zone. Mitch, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
The Cougars have many questions. Do you think they have more questions now after the last week? We had a player tell PK and I, the quarterback race feels like it's getting tighter, which is exactly what the coaches are saying. So are we getting questions resolved here, or are we getting more questions?
I think they're getting closer to answers. I think that this quarterback battle for BYU is, pretty even, but I'd give the edge to Gerry Bohanon. I think that Bohanan has been, pretty solid. And I think it's noteworthy the fact that, he comes out of spring and was nowhere near healthy, yet he was still on, in a battle with Jake Retzlaff, and Jake Retzlaff couldn't decisively pull away. And now that he's healthy, he's a new guy. And still, is he going to be a guy that, gets BYU to 8 or 9 wins? I wouldn't probably bank on that right now, but I think that he's good enough to get BYU to 6, and he's shown some playmaking ability in camp that, delivers some maybe wow plays. And BYU just hasn't had any of that in the last, since they've been a Big 12 member. And that's what they desperately need at that position. Is they need a guy that's going to take care of the football. He's going to deliver some explosive playmaking ability. And at times, Bohanon's shown that. And I think that that's why I'd give him the edge right now heading into week 3 of camp.
I would too, Mitch. In my conversations with folks yesterday, that's what I think I'm hearing. And one of the things, that's what I am hearing, and that's what I think. But it's not 100% set in stone. It's still fluid.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that I've been impressed with Bohanon through conversations with others is that, because he has been a starting quarterback before, and he did lead the Baylor Bears to the Big 12 title, was it in the 21 season, I think it was, that, he knows the leadership aspects. So he wasn't healthy enough to the level he needed to be in spring ball, but that doesn't have any bearing on leadership capabilities. And talking to Lassiter last week, Lassiter said that Bohanon, from the first day, was acting like a leader. And then this is sort of an extreme example. We understand that one of his players was giving a talk in church yesterday, and Bohanon went as a way to support one of his guys on offense. And I think that where I'm going with this, Mitch, is that Bohanon is, I can't say setting himself apart, because that would be a slight against Retzlaff, and I don't mean to do that. But it's more about Bohanon exhibiting the type of leadership that is required at quarterback. Definitely.
And you think about Dave Aranda and Alex Golish at USF, they both just spoke glowingly about Gerry Bohanon. I mean, Dave Aranda told Bohanon that he was going to be the second quarterback before the portal closed, be out of respect for the type of character he's shown. And, Kalani's always talked about, his culture in his locker room is kind of the defining trait of Kalani's teams. And, Bohanon's enhanced that. And I think that's helped the cause for BYU. And I think Bohanon's a guy that, he told me in an interview that he's got the leadership qualities, but now he feels like he's back to his normal self on the field. He even said that he feels like he could throw a ball 75 yards right now, which, I'd love to see that in one of these observation periods. But I just think everything is just trending towards him, and it feels like players are really rallying behind him, and he kind of fits BYU. I mean, he's a dad. He's got a son, and he likes the family environment. There's just a lot of things about Bohanon, and also it's his last year of college football. Why would you sign a guy out of the portal to just have him ride the bench and not get one more crack at it? And BYU's liked him for a couple different transfer portal cycles back in 2022, and this one. I just think that Roderick and his staff, they really like him, and I just feel like that's where things are trending with Bohanon being that QB1 when they take on Southern Illinois.
Will they have a running game to support the quarterback? And for all the talk about running back, is it more important how the O-line performs, or are you really concerned about who that running back turns out to be?
I'm concerned about that running back because there's a pretty big drop-off from L.J. Martin to Hinckley Ropati. And Ropati, had some nice moments in that day one. You guys were there too and saw him break free for some nice gains. But since that first day, I mean, there hasn't been much to write home about on the practices. And look, it's kind of a very small sample size, and you're picking up the tendencies if you're the defense, knowing what this offense is doing. But even when you just look at Ropati's career at BYU, he's going into his fifth season, and 2 games really is where he's had an impact in his BYU career. Now, I just think that there's a high bar for what a good running back in the Big 12 is, and BYU's nowhere near that right now. I'd put BYU near the bottom of Big 12 running back units in this league, and that just speaks to how good this conference is when it comes to running backs. So it's a big question, and Ropati and Miles Davis, if they're called upon, I think are okay, but I just don't think they meet the standard of what this conference clearly shows what you need to have to win at that position. So and I think it was a missed opportunity by BYU to not get a transfer portal running back this year. I mean, they've just had so much success doing that, and to not go get another portal running back, I think was a missed decision by Roderick and Kalani and the staff to not get another RB to almost give you that insurance, because you saw that what they did with linebacker. They knew Ben Bywater was going to be probably he was going to be gone, and with that shoulder. So they go out and get Shea Bryant Strother to add another option after the spring to retool that linebacker unit. They should have done the same with the running back unit as well.
Well, what's the deal with the cat and mouse game with Martin's injuries?
Sorry, you guys broke up there. What was that again?
Why are they playing the cat and mouse game with L.J. Martin's injury situation?
Yeah. That was so strange in day 3 of camp. I mean, we haven't seen him at all in a team portion snap in the 11-on-11 segments of practices, and he's gone through everything else of practices, but we're never seeing him in the team portion. And they're putting out the belief that he's still going to be good to go and play against Southern Illinois. Could this, Kalani's had history of sometimes having precautionary deals with, because they know what L.J. Martin is. They feel like he's going to be the RB1. But still, I mean, these are valuable snaps when you're trying to form your identity as an offense. It's pretty big to miss these snaps for this team in year 2 of the Big 12. So, I think in a best case scenario, you can get by without L.J. Martin in Southern Illinois, but you're going to need him against SMU, and that's to me where you want to see him back on the football field for BYU, because if he's not, this could be a really tough stretch for BYU in the early part of the season.
Does BYU have their next great tight end?
I think they do, Riner Swanson, and the tight end position has been kind of, we're seeing a lot of different guys getting a snap. Even, Roderick saying that he feels he could travel 8 guys on the travel roster and road games. But I think in terms of the ceiling, the potential, it's Swanson to me. And, former 4-star prospect, turned down, it got really close between BYU and Texas, but it was a case of, an LDS guy just dreaming of playing for BYU. And that won the day in many respects to turn down Sarkisian in Texas for Riner Swanson. And I just feel like he's going to be a guy that in games he's going to really shine. And he's shined in spring ball. Fall camp, we haven't seen as many targets and big plays from him as we saw in spring. But I just think Swanson, when he gets in a game, he can be the blocking tight end. He can be a great receiver. He's so physical with his play. I just think that he's going to be special. Now, he is a guy that's going to be set no matter what his production level is this year. He's going to go on a mission after this season is kind of a throwback mission where you get 1 year of him and then he goes for 2 years. He's only a 17-year-old kid, just turned 18 recently, I believe. And so he'll go on a mission no matter what after this year. But I think he's the guy that has the brightest future ahead. But they've got options. I think Keanu Hill will be solid. And Ethan Erickson, solid as well. But as far as just like that next great one that I think BYU fans have grown accustomed to over the years, Riner Swanson is that one for me.
It's interesting what they do with the quarterbacks because the last couple of years, they basically were going to play no matter what, unless they obviously couldn't go whatsoever because they just didn't trust the backups or didn't have any experience at the backup level. Now, this year, and Kalani's talked about it. He talked about it in Vegas, and he's mentioned it multiple times. He's got 4 guys on the roster who've started games, and that's sort of cool. But at the same time, you're only playing one. How long do you think that they go with a starter in terms of how they handle it if the kid might struggle a little bit because they do have others now who have experience?
There's no time to wait, and that Southern Illinois game, I feel is critical for BYU because you can't have a 14-0 Sam Houston type game, 20-6, Portland State in 2017, and just say all is well. You'll get better in week 2 and take your biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. No, I think that's a game where you kind of have to show a proof of concept in a way where, hey, you're going to put up a 40 spot, 50 piece, whatever it may be. You got to put up some numbers. And Gerry Bohanon is struggling or whoever quarterback it is, if they're struggling in that first quarter or multiple drive after drive, and it's just kind of it's stalling, and there's no success, kind of like what you saw last year at the offense, there's got to be a quick trigger to go to the next guy because, there's no time waiting. I mean, you got a schedule where you've got, 10 Power 5 teams, again, Power 4 teams, and you got a road game in there against Wyoming, and the Wyoming head coach, when I was talking to him in Mountain West Media Days, he's like, we know what that game means. That's a first-year head coach, and you can already get the sense of the magnitude of what that game's going to mean. I don't know if BYU realizes their players. Wyoming clearly does. So that's going to be a tough schedule. You've got to find answers quick in games, and that's why that Southern Illinois game is critical. So whoever the quarterback is, if they're struggling, there's got to be a willingness to just change them out and just say that guy doesn't have it today and go to the next guy. And then the following week, it's quarterback battle again. And I just think that even if they go with Bohanan as QB1, he's got to perform in games. And Roderick himself said it. Like, there's nothing else to really say about this group in camp. They got proven on Saturdays. And if the guy that they pick is not getting it done, go to the next guy in a hurry. And if you got to go to Hillstead, you got to go to Bourget. You've got Kalani has said 4 guys that start games, go to them because no one right now has established themselves to say the weight of BYU's future in the Big 12 is on their shoulders. They have to just find a guy that can get them to 6 wins this year. And it might take all 4 of them in some capacity. It's not ideal, but if it needs to be that way, they got to do that. So I don't think it's going to be anything extreme like, Robert and I days where it was every other drive between Riley Nilsson and Jake Heaps. I don't think you're going to see anything like that. But if there's struggles, go to the next guy.
Defensively, they really had some games get away from them. Gave up a lot of yards and a lot of points. West Virginia, Iowa State really stick out late in the year. Do you think they're going to be more improved with the run defense or more improved with the pass rush, or it's Christmas morning and Cougar fans and Jay Hill get everything they want?
I think they could get everything they want, potentially. The big question still in camp is at D tackle. It's pretty lean. There's not much established depth there. And, they've got Blake Mangelson, who switched over from D-end to D-tackle. He could still kick out to the, in spot if they go to odd front. John Nelson there, but they just don't have like a Kairos Tonga handling the interior. And that's where someone like a Danny Saili was a loss in the springtime, just from a body type. Now they've got Sonny Tuwala, a JUCO transfer, very raw. Kelly Papinga said he's kind of Ziggy Ansah-like in terms of his potential, but raw football player, hasn't had many snaps to his name. He could be a guy that kicks into the interior as well. Really good athlete, but still, it's not many proven commodities in that interior. I do think the defensive ends are going to be better. Tyler Batty, Bodie Schoonover's been taking real leaps forward. He was a guy that had offers, to Nebraska and some Pac-12 programs in the past. He's really taken a leap. And then Logan Latui and Zay Banya, those are probably your top four guys at defensive end. And I think Jack Kelly's going to be pretty special for BYU too at linebacker from Weber State. So I think that the pass rush should be better. Rush defense, I think because of that interior, it leaves me, wait and see. But I think there will be strides for BYU's defense. I think in a best case scenario, they could be maybe top four in the Big 12. I think this is a group that's much improved, and the secondary should be really good. Gerald Guilford, talking to him, and he said that Mark Collins and Jacob Robinson are two seniors leading the way, but Mark Collins is working his way back from an ACL injury. But I just expect with his 5 years of experience in Jay Hill's defense, he's going to probably start. And he's been practicing. It's just still maybe not what he was before the ACL. And then Maury Bamba, a junior defensive back, he's got all the measurables to maybe be a future NFL guy. It's really clicking for him in fall camp, and he's had a lot of success. So there's a lot of things to like about BYU's defense, and I think they're going to take leaps forward this year.
Does Jack Kelly get his jersey retired during the season, or do they wait after? Because this kid has gotten a lot of hype.
He has gotten a lot of hype, and I think it's part of it is because he's been so productive in how productive he was at the FCS ranks in terms of sacks, and typically those type of players, especially for Jay Hill, since he's came over and brought over to Weber State guys, they've all pretty much hit and they've had success. I don't know if I was going to say Jack Kelly's going to be an all-timer at BYU, but I think he's going to be pretty solid. And I think that he stepped in to the BYU program and was instantly one of the strongest guys in the weight room. And I just think that he's an explosive athlete paired up with his physicality. He can be a guy that can go line up at the DN spot. I mean, he could just do a lot of different things in Jay Hill's defense. And I think it's created this, this feeling that he could be pretty good. And again, I think too, I used to kind of in the past think, oh, that's not as big of a thing. But once you kind of see it week after week in power conference, he is kind of a, power conference body type. And, in the past BYU last year, there were just many games where you roll into Stillwater and you go, BYU doesn't have anything that looks like that. Like as far as just builds and measurables on certain position groups, whereas, Oklahoma State's and Iowa State's, they had it. And you go, that's what BYU needs. And maybe that's where Kalani ties back to, he always brings up the parenting reference of year one to year two, or first kid to second kid. Those little things that they learned, where it's like they need that. And Jack Kelly kind of embodies that for them. But like many things in BYU's team this year, they got to live up to it, and they got to produce on when the game's actually taking place.
So when you add all this up, and you got 2.5 weeks to get new information before we even get to a first game. But sitting here today, how confident are you they can finish bowl eligible and finish with a winning record?
Sorry, you broke up, DJ.
How comfortable are you with the thought that the Cougars could finish bowl eligible and finish with a winning record?
I think BYU with getting to a bowl would be a nice accomplishment for BYU this year. And the thing is that I don't think BYU's standard has got to be, it can't be lowered. I mean, they've had a lot of success of winning football over the last, 50 or so years. But I think for this year, getting to the postseason would be a nice accomplishment. I think 6 would be solid. And then in 2025, you got to then think, okay, you're making another climb, maybe into the top half of the league, and, make it a push. Because I think just what's so critical to the, to kind of make this push for in the Big 12 is just the hierarchy is not set. And look, I think this could be a league where every year anyone can maybe win it potentially, but it's so critical to, get into the upper tier of the league if you're BYU. And I think it's been kind of a missed opportunity by BYU to just not go maybe all hands on deck from a resources at the fast pace like you're seeing in basketball to just make this chase for the playoff. Whatever you need, Kalani, for quarterback or NIL resources, just go all in, because you just never know how long this current structure of the Big 12 and the playoff is going to last. So capitalize while you can. And but 6, considering their roster this year and what they've put together, I think they're going to be improved this season. I think they can get to 6. But then going forward, it's got to be, you got to take another climb. And I think also too for BYU, an important piece for Kalani and his job going forward is that he's got a lot of talented freshmen in the program right now. Even Jay Hill has spoke glowingly about them, being a home run class. If those guys show flashes too of maybe some playmaking ability this season, I think that could be a nice piece for Kalani and his staff. Say, like, even if they got to a point where it was 5-7, and at season's end, and what does Tom do going forward? He could say the future looks bright with this freshman class, but still, to me, I think you got to get to the postseason no matter what, because you can't just have back-to-back seasons and feel all as well for the fan base to keep paying the high prices and keep paying out the money to think that's a good product. So it's critical to get to 6, and I think if they did that, I think that would be a solid year in year 2 in the Big 12.
Mitch, we appreciate the time, as always. Thanks for stopping by for a few minutes to talk college football and talk BYU football. You're the man.
You bet, guys. Take care.
Mitch Harper, BYU Cougar insider for The Zone. Steve Bartle, Utah insider for The Zone, is here at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK got a Ute story from a national writer, and I think there are 2 things in there that are going to trigger PK. Can't figure out which one's going to trigger him more. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben